commission tanzimali. That is why I said earlier, I want to appeal to your conscience when you ask for that data. When I come to your establishment and then you give me that book, you see that book, the one that you say I must write my birth certificate, I must write my ID, my telephone number, and you don't know what you're going to do with it. Think about that, because if there is a breach based on that, and the investigation says it's because of that, well, let's do Pamban. Baba Msibi, can I give you the honors to continue with your...
Thank you, Program Director. Siyabonga. If you are the Minister of the Word, when you see an audience, the temptation comes to start ministering and preaching the Word of God. But I want to allay my fears, a Program Director la kutsi ngabe masonveni what is happening. I want to say that God is the advocate of data protection. Kwaqala yena uthi don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Nginemanga yini bazalwane? Ngeke wathi ukuthi umntolo ngale unikele emalini kufuna kube kwakho wedwana. And that is attached to a blessing. Once wathi kuthiwa that blessing is revoked because you've already received your reward. Interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, libito lami nginqoba ngwakamsibi ngithunyiwe ngembethe lijazi lekubolekwa, so kufanele ngingathakuthi kakhulu lest I make mistakes bese sengishayela lo ngithumile tinyoni. I'm standing in for the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of ICT, who would have wanted to be with us, but due to equally pressing responsibilities, elive ubambegile bongosi. Program Director Babemjali, Honourable Minister of ICT, Chairperson of MICT Portfolio Committee, Ndlinyaba School, House of Assembly, Chairperson and board members of Eswatini Communications Commission, Chief Executive, ESCCOM, Acting Director, Communications Department, Ministry of ICT, Captains of Industry, Information and Data Protection Professionals, Senior Government Officials, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Siyanvusela bekunene. My task, Sanmonan begunene, good morning. Thank you. My task is very simple, yet very difficult to introduce the Honourable Minister. It is difficult because there's quite a lot that you can talk about her and her accolades. It is very simple because I have been a direct beneficiary of being mentored and raised professionally by her. It is my great honor to introduce a remarkable leader, a visionary in the field of ICT and other disciplines, Honourable Minister Savannah Mazia. Since assuming office, Minister Mazia has fundamentally transformed the way the Ministry of ICT operates. It is not just a statement or words that have been written. The Ministry of ICT literally operates ungazuthi private sector. Sesifunzile ke nathi kuthi kuyagijinywa. Le notion noma lokwati ukuthi uhulumende kunelezi affair attitude, it doesn't work in the Ministry of ICT. Bengithi ndawushaya tandla nishayile minister tandla. What she has done ensures that government services are accessible to all citizens. Minister Mazia's influence extends far beyond our borders. On the global stage, she is recognized as a strong advocate for ethical governance in the digital age, serving on international committees where her insights are deeply valued. On this Data Protection Day, as we reaffirm our collective commitment to safeguarding personal information and strengthening digital trust, it is fitting that we welcome a leader, a mentor, a trailblazer who has made this mission her own. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, kindly help me to welcome Honourable Minister Savannah Mazia to the podium.
Sanibonani nonke. You can always tell when construction has been done by men, no one considers the high heels of those of us who are vertically challenged. But good morning, everybody, and thank you for making the time to come and share with us these important matters. I'd like to observe our protocol and welcome everybody to this important occasion, and to also thank the folks at ESCCOM who are really doing such great work under the leadership of our CEO. I'm honored to join you today because I really understand that more than anybody, one of the most important things we need to be able to teach our nation, to teach our people, is the issue of security and the issue of protection of data. If we can just win this particular proposition, CEO, and board members, and my very wonderful chairperson. I have to say nice things to the chairperson. It's really important that we are able to win this. I'm so very honored to be able to join all of you on this Data Protection Day of 2026, a moment in our lives that is really important for us to be able to recognize the importance that is shaped by a digital world. I wish to sincerely thank the Communications Commission, its role, and what it does for the protection of our citizens in the area of communication. I want to share with you today that data is no longer an abstract issue. It's something that's really deeply personal. It's information of young entrepreneurs selling their products online, parents accessing government services, farmers looking for market prices, students applying for opportunities both here and beyond our borders. How do we ensure that everybody understands how they keep their data safe? One of the things that's happened to me personally that I found out a couple of days ago was that I had a credit card compromised. Someone is in Chanel and at Target in the US, CEO, having a good time. You have to understand that it's not a destination, it's a journey. Daily we must ensure that all our gadgets, all our information are always put in an environment where they're always safe. I'm so saddened by the stories that we hear in the country where those who are elderly are always abused by various people in our community. We no longer stand at a point where we can say not knowing or ignorance is an excuse. We all have to engage in a way that we understand that our lives depend more and more on the issue of ensuring that information is kept safe. As we rely more and more on the areas of digitization, where paper becomes obsolete, when we rely more and more on the areas of robotics, where we have more than human beings running the earth, we have to be able to appreciate that the issue of keeping our data safe will continue to be something that's in our lives for a very long time, perhaps forever. And therefore, we must get smarter in how we are keeping our information safe, because I can guarantee you that those who are training themselves to steal our information exercise capacity building on a daily basis. They ensure that they are able to abuse our information and use it for bad purposes. I'd also like to say that as a country, as government, we must ensure that we are continuously ensuring information of the public, information of everybody in the country is kept safe. Government is actively engaging many members of society to ensure that we're always unlocking opportunities for investment, innovation, and job creation. These engagements hold real promise for economic growth and for expanding opportunities, particularly for young people. However, as we open our digital economy to the world, we must do so with care, responsibility. Economic opportunity must never come at the expense of the privacy and dignity of a Maswati. Our data must be processed lawfully, securely, and in line with our national laws and values. Digital partnerships must strengthen our economy without compromising our sovereignty. This principle is reflected in initiatives such as the Government in Your Hand platform, which has transformed our citizens and will continue to transform our citizens on how to access public services in the palm of their hands, bringing government closer to the people, reducing costs, travel time, and saving them the cost of being able to stand in line sometimes for very long a time. But the success of such digital platforms depends on one critical factor: confidence. Citizens must trust that when they engage digitally, their personal information is protected. Strong data protection is what turns digital access into digital trust. Distinguished guests, His Majesty the King has consistently championed Eswatini's full participation in the African Continental Free Trade Area, as AFCTA, or AFTA as it's known, increasingly embraces digital trade and cross-border data flows. Trusted data governance becomes very essential. For Eswatini to compete and succeed in regional and continental markets, we must protect personal data whilst enabling innovation and trade. Data protection is not a barrier to growth, but an enabler of sustainable economic integration. I wish to again commend ESCCOM and the Eswatini Data Protection Authority for the progress they have made in building this foundation. Their work reflects foresight, being professional, and a deep commitment to protecting the rights of our people while enabling digital growth. I am pleased to confirm that the data protection regulations are at an advanced stage and that there's a firm commitment to ensuring their timely finalization. These regulations will provide clarity, certainty, and confidence to citizens, businesses, and investors. Honorable guests, I want to be able to say to you today, please ensure that even though we are not seen as an employed data protection officer, we actually are all data protection officers, wherever we are. So please understand that we need to be understanding, knowing, and informing ourselves of all the changes and all the policies and all the laws, so we do not have to be paying 100 million emalangeni, is what I heard, some of the steep prices and fines that are out there. Data protection is essential to economic growth, digital inclusion, and human dignity. The decisions we make today will determine whether our digital future empowers our people or exposes them to harm. Let's use data protection to grow our economy, ensure that we can get employment for those who are unemployed, to be able to build capacity within the youth, but most importantly, to ensure that we are a country that respects information, we are a country that keeps information safe, we are a country that respects its citizens. Thank you so much for today, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Maybe ungakahambi Minister, but ngiyumbuto Minister, ngiyakubona ngidaze ngiqoshwe. Angifuni ukuqoshwa phela. Ngidawucela chairperson we-Portfolio Committee Assembly fana usonzele ngakimi na-chairman we-board yami ngaze ngiqoshwe. Kune-token minister that buya babendlovu. Buya Dlamini kunene. Buya Nkosi eDlamini. Kune-token minister that we are asking that bafane basengisele yona. Mbanda abadala unganika chairman portfolio. adose ngisela otherwise ngangiyakubuta minister manje umphasi lapha ungitshelile ukuthi ngambuta nje minister uyaqosha buya ngala
What is this?
cha ngiyadla
I've always wanted to give you flowers.
Siyabonga. As they take a seat, can I invite quickly Silwane na Gogo Kotokim ukuthi bete ngambili for 3 minutes before induni hambe. Cha ungehla minister. And siyabonga minister for your wise words of wisdom. Phela ngimshiyena shaman. Yeah, ngimshiyena shaman. Awuyabona shaman lokuba ngumlomnyama. Awushaman lokuba umuntu wasecanfini phela ngishele wena utawubamba induna wehle nayo. Ay, uyabona shaman uyangihlaza man. So we will just have a short presentation by Gogo and Silwane, and then thereafter shortly we'll go and take a photo shoot, and then sitokona ukuthi sikhulule induna. After tea break, we will then come back and have a panel discussion. So nabaqeda abogogo noSilwane uLgodokim. I will come back, we will go for a photo shoot, tea break, and then we come back. Phela gibelani la kan hey uNkulunkulu wami labantu.
Phela funa uqethe batoshatana yabona MC lokuqala MC yananga
1 2
yakuthanza koJesudu babe yakuthanza iSuthu
yenta njalo ayiseyisha sanibonani Honourable Minister all protocol observed bosi kakhulu balingani bami lena ngathi ayisebenzi Gogo awuthathe
yasebenza
awuthathe naye
awuthi ke okay lena ngathi ngingumfundisi wethu
bosi lengikuvile nje mina ukuthi SCOs we have to support the DPOs bachazile lo
ngeke manje uvuke ekseni bengi-CEO
bavuke nini ke la
baye kakhulu eklasini labantu laba babuya kuma interview lo ngasi nawe uyakiyo wena ubuye uhawukelela kapha ngenthambo la ubuye endlini uvuka ngathi status sakho sesehle kakhulu nje sekuthiwa umuntu yathi Silwane solo ngifikile labateka indzaba ye data protection
yeah
labantu bonke laba la abayati lento lesibhekana nayo kuma security
kakhulu
minister uyati lento le ngoba
bavele bamngenise minister
nawe ngawuhambe ngeHonda Fit bese so utholana na security
ungamathi security ukuthi yini angisisho security nangibekemela lo wakho hayi lo yakusi security
akusakho
sisho security se uta sekaphethe lebhuka lifaka la fast nothi igcwalisa la
ubhale
malakho sibongo inumber plate email inombolo
status sakho
kuthi ume kanjani ngempilo ubala ukuthi lokhu kudzingeka kuphi parking lokho
setawubuthwa kulomuntu loya kuyele ngekhathi
utengani
ihlobene njani naloya kuyele ngekhathi
uthi ke business kuthiwa iyini yena vakizi kanti kwendekani la
yenda kube kunye uyabhalisa la noma uyajike babe ngisemsebentini utangicoshisa nalo labema ngalo utangicoshisa emsebentini
inkinga ukuthi nabo abadla abantu abadzala ukuthi leli bhuku labaligcwalisako lingabafaka inkingeni kusasa Because ngiyatbuza nje ngabe mase ligcwele vele liyayilisho nephi leli bhuku zange sengilibone leligcwele mina
balilondolota phela Silwane
uphi la ngena khona phela la imali abakhulume ngayo la aze babe asho lokhu wrong as 500 million kanofuna ukuthi up to 100 million umvile boss naye akathi sufe phela imali ongayijwayele iyadida namasoyiphi
uyijwayele ke le mali ubona
uthela umfu 500 million wasuthi ha I wanted to say up to 100 million 500 na 100 kuyalingana
500 million
ngathi imali ngakanani le
lokho Silwane nangathiwa nje ufuna liyofika 500 million nawe wena lefanele ubeke lo muntu lelicala ungeke socabanga nje ukuthi ngambeka icala engaka ukuthi ayibaphi le mali le
Gogo yabona mina le Data Protection Act 2022 ithi sonke
ke Silwane sitokele ngaphandle
sonke uma usenda lokungobesa nje phone nemvu kanje calile inkingi
nalokuthi bakusendele isithombe bese ushutha ngaleli linye licingo wena lesithombe labakusendele so
because lokuthi lesithombe sithi view once ngisho kona lokho nje view once so ufuna kusiphinza phinzelana phela ngoba ngu once wensi ke bese wena uyashare shutha ngalenye phone usendele abantu uthi ke le Data Protection Act hambisana naleli yanyiswe ngibabela phaka cyber security kubothwa abantu.
Silwane ngiyakubona lokho. Uyabona naba le ukuthi bese ba screenshot abafaka igama nesibongo ne-ID neminyaka nekuthula ngawe bafati ungathi bakule census bathi nangu uyangikweleta ngifuna iseni yena.
Ngekhathi
Bonke labantu labo batokele ngaphandle.
kanti Gogo le mfo data protection sonke khona lokubakheleza umvalahli i-ID but anga report.
No Silwane i-ID ke abantu abayilahli i-ID kubanjiswa ngayo nakuyofunwa timbasha.
Ku-wrong kwakona lokho.
Ayilahleki i-ID unika lo muntu lo.
Akanikwa umuntu ngokuthiwa personal yakho le.
Usilwane usuke ungamniki ukuthi uyamupha ivele isuke iyakho. Unaloko ukuthi nginikelo lokuthite ngiyovala.
Sothathela imali.
Ufuna i-ID phela naye. Asibone kulutho babe kuwe. Silwane lokusho ukuthi i-ID nayi yakho ufuna uyilondolode uyiphathe kahle wente isiqiniseko sokuthi uyayigcina.
Sothi ke nangabe sithithile Gogo lamabhuku lagcwalisa ngoba esaphethe lapha nabo CEO. Phela sifake ama-application singacashwa tishona plate le ncwadi lekhathi ngingacashwa bese bayenda njani nalesi V
Abakwadi bosi
naba
bosi abakwadi lokho
Ah,
kwati wabo bo human
Yeah.
capital bosi abakwadi bo human capital labo bahleli ngakuna emva kwabo minister
babi
emva kwabo minister kunabo
Gogo
human
kahle,
capital la
kahle bo finance lapha
finance.
baba netibuko nje finance.
Oh yeah leli tafula libanjwe tibuko vele.
Bengisolonga esilapha honorable minister sibuka nje ukhipha speech lesimnanze ngaka nemagama lawasha minister mangalibo importance lothi awumuva uthiwa usilent awuthola ukuthi nangathi uyalibhala igama ungamfaki lothi wrong.
Uhamba ucishe phi ke lothi?
Honorable minister kume liphoyisa la. Ngiyabona ke nothi uyabona liphoyisa hayi uthi limele uthi ligathe minister ligathe data.
Okay.
Data protection iqala. Le mibhobho iyaphila yini noma ngathi le mibhobho le
Iyaphila lembopho Silwane iyaphila yonke.
sengize ngiyabuta ke minister ukuthi ngabe lama form atholakala kuphi la ukugcwalisa khona ufuna usina ukukhuluma kumele phoyisa athi ngiyafisa lokho yokugcwalisa.
Ngeke ke Silwane ulunge lapho. Wena lo ngabantu bengileli phoyisa uthola iform lekuba ngileli phoyisa lekuma la.
Nake maphoyisa khona kunemlayetho labahlale bawusho Gogo bathi nawe uliphoyisa.
Ake sengive phoyiseni ke ngoba ikakhulu nawo alifuthi alihambi lodwa. Le ngikhulumo leyo iliqiniso kangakanani ukuthi nawe uliphoyisa. Siyisha ngathi abayadi. Ungangendi ngibulala abantu abazala indlebe elwanyana. Lento niyayithanza kanani yadi. Le ngikhulumo lethi nawe uliphoyisa iliqiniso kangakanani esenawe medem. Utheni Silwane uthi iqiniso. Ngisonzele ke ngitomva.
Ndawuthini phela umbhobho na ucishile la. Suke speak and Gogo. Nangabe medem uthi le nkulumo lethi nawe uliphoyisa.
Ungayengeki nangala sudwini liphoyisa. Leli lingakagcoki uniform kulala babhamlana ngeniphamana abafuna niphendvule.
Lala bakhipha idatha ngenkani ke laba
Laba minister ngilala baphutha idatha ibuye kibo ngenkani laba. Laba ngagcoki. Kulale ngikhulumo lethi nawe uliphoyisa. Yese le ngikhulumo leyo uthi iqiniso yini?
bathi liqiniso ngaze ngajabula.
Yes, iliqiniso Silwane.
Ayutshothi nje nami ngiliphoyisa se. Wonderful. Awungiboleke isibhamu ke. Sesitalekile.
Ngamani ubengilele linikwe imfengwane wena. Amani ubengilele linikwe imfengwane wena. Nayi ke lenye indzaba siyabonga kakhulu CEO ufikile la Silwane wathi kubeka indzaba ezibaluleke kakhulu. CEO sisivela ngaphandle sidokele ngaphandle ngezizathu lesithi le information iyefika kodwa ifika kafishane. Siyacela ke CEO ukuthi thina sibe nguleli thumbu leli tawuthatha lamagama lamakhulu lebekashiwo nguminister la. Siwasombulule siwalethe ngaleli lwimi lelincane lelitawuvuka ngulalabancane labalemgacweni. Lekufuna ukuthi bayadi lemilayo lebaluleke kangaka.
Ya ngoba lithi iBhayibheli Gogo ngive lenye ingceke unayifika lana ithi uthi ungabona abantu nangabona leligcobo bese kuba le temptation yokuthi ngase uyaqala ukukhuluma indzaba. Nami sengiyakuva lento la kimi kancane.
Babe bekayinceke yini?
Yes.
Ungayengwa isuthu baba kasinceko. Baba asince.
Lithi Gogo iBhayibheli bantu bambaya fa bayabhubha ngekwesola lwati.
Yebo. Yebo.
Uthi ke Gogo CEO ngula Gogo nasilwane bangena khona lokhu yale kubantu babafundzisa ngalethi indzaba le data protection. Ngoba lo munye uvese kakhuluma ukuthi hey mina bengikhuluma bengise Cape Town but sengiva ngathi bengeke Cape Town. Le ndzaba yamseyiva ngilabanye kanti bese ngiyiviwe ngilabanye. Ngulo usilomva kafundziseke ukuthi hey wathi umuntu ngiyini uyakhatha. Uyabona. Ngoba uzukhuluma nje ukuthi yebo ngise Cape Town but ngicela ubhulela umsindo wasilona la ubhula kanenge awubhule. Ngilokho kafundziseke ngale yabo data. Uyabona. So masingathola ukuthi siya le makhaya ngoba le makhaya Honourable Minister sine ngalana emadolobheni njengoba sithi uyathi lapha kamcileni kwakho lapha ezulwini. Ningahleka ngahleko lemona ngiyalathi uyayithenga indlu lapha. Kukuwe uyahamba nje uthenga indlu bayakunika. A couple of millions ube nendlu yakho then
Eswatini awume bekhaya kini bayathi labantu lapha.
Bayathi ekhaya kithi abathi kami ngisho kami mina.
Okay, okay. Singayimose leli bese sayikhuluma la CEO la. Singayimose bekhuluma so ukuthi CEO siyacela nakathi silwana siye emakhaya usho ukuthi asiye leti inkundleni. Ngoba leti inkundla kufakwele emakhaya CEO ekuze kusonzele lama services kubantu.
Lokuthiwa decentralization CEO ngaleli lwimi lefana bo minister. Yes.
Ngula ke sidingeka khona CEO sihlanganise labantu labasha nalabakhulile nabo sitobe khamela ngalendzaba letibalekile ngobe lokuthi bese kuba nemithetho loshicilelwe 2002 zokusho ukuthi lo muntu nase kwendeke wefika lapho so wende licala manje kwenta licala ungathi ke so ufuna kulibale kushikishwa tandla kuthi ngicela manje ngibhulela umlilo akusingeke uziceke ukuthi ubhulela umlilo so ngawufaka wena lelwati sikhona ke CEO kakhulu si free kude lesibhizi ngawo singaqala nyalo nje. Singaqala nyalo.
Ngive MC yakhuluma ke magama athi ngicela sonke sim encourage CEO wasathatha decision kuloko. Simshayele intamo.
Yeah, sim encourage asathatha decision.
Yes, yes.
What delay ya CEO nelibandla lakho siyahamba siya enkundleni utawubona ngeinvoice. Enkundla siyadata phela kwa lethu utalela kalobamba. Siye enkundleni utawubona sobona ngeinvoice CEO ukuthi no kuyasetshenzwa vele abantu bayafundziswa kanzi ke nangala silwane naba balingani bakho ngala.
Kulicala nje CEO Mbabane Municipal kuthi ungaya kuEwadini singekho thina uyothini kubantu singekho because ngizwe kufanele sitshele abantu ukuthi nyalo sesisukumisa wena so nyalo ngakubona usewadini noma ngangiliphi ilwadi ngishaya imoto ngiyafika ngifaka invoice
Lokusho ukuthi PS wenu nonke nje abo CEO ngithi
Ngabe CEO Standard Bank kuyavakala yini lo ukuthi sekuthi product ya Standard Bank lengakhulunyiswa singekho thina
kuyacaca Silwane.
Ngicabanga ukuthi CEO ENPF lapho utanitshela ukuthi kwentiwa kanjani ngoba sisebenza naye kulamalanga.
Uyathi futhi ukuthi kuhamba kanjani nase kusetshenzwa.
Gogo kulesikhathi lesi sekufanele siye etiyeni sesivimbe lithumbu lokuthi abantu bayojabula. Sibonga kakhulu Honourable Minister. Thank you.
Hambani. Bengicela manje ngivile lokuthi wena Silwane uyahamba ubuyele eJozi sokunikile Gogo 500 ukuthi ubuyele eJozi so sesitawubona leka procurement ukuthi sithola abantu abatasitha ngoba nine vele utawusala Gogo yedwa nisithi eJozi. Ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Minister siyabonga for the first part of the program. We will quickly go outside. The PR team will show us where we're going to take a group picture. After that, we're going to have a tea break outside. Nasbuya, we have a case study from Liberty Life. Bathi bona bayakwati lokho. Kuke kwabavelela bafuna kusicocela and bahlomise labanye abahlobo bethu ukuthi how do you avoid it. Number 2, saba ne panel discussion. Uyabona ngala kubomuntu ongibophele bo-CEO Minister. Ngifasile. Kukahle ngoba kusuyimi lo mholi wabo nabadiscussa ngoba ngibathi ngamunye personal data yabo bengazi nangiba introduce ngisho ukuthi lona ke minister wangenda nje manje ke kukahle fisiwe will come through Nasen the panel discussion and lead that session. But for now, can we all stand, allow the minister and the top table, Nabo CEO, Sambe, so that's a group picture. We come back for tea. We will convene here in about 20 minutes' time. Thank you.
Two, 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 two.
Ngicela sibalandzele bekunene siyothatha sithombe. We are all invited for the group picture outside. Sitawukhona ukuthi nami ngivele. Ngibethe nje at least libundi ke. And then we're coming back for tea.
Two. Two, two, two.
thank you for your patience and for your participation in the discussion. Hlupha njengoba basekhona la abahwaya le tulo. Sengidabahlawulisa uthi theni ke sicela up to 100 utheni ngicela. Sengidawulanza Gogo naSilwane bathi angibitela le nombolo ngoba ngiyabona kunenge nombolo. So before we continue, can we I want us to invite Liberty Life Eswatini to come through. One of the things that we were discussing is that we need to collaborate and teach each other. So Liberty Life bavumile ukuthi they will come through and talk to us about a case study in the implementation journey of the Act. And I would like us to give her a round of applause. Mane, sakhuluma nalabo DJ Kafa Kafa lapha. Lindo, if you could come through to me. She's going to talk to us about the journey that Liberty Eswatini has gone through in terms of data protection. And the idea about this is that sometimes into nayendiwa nguwe bantu babese babane fatigue ukulalela. So sometimes it's better to learn from the peers. So you're going to talk here, and it's not in the program, but I will allow it. I will then allow maybe 2 or 3 questions from exactly. From not me this time, just Balula. So that so that we all learn, because song is sibasha. So now khona lo salweli lelitubuku. So that we can then also do that. Can we clap our hands and allow her to make the presentation?
Good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for having me, and I think I should actually thank the EDPA through ESCCOM for actually allowing me to be here today. It is quite an honor, although the protocol has been trimmed already, but let me recognize all protocol observed in line with what has previously been mentioned before. But I want to also welcome you as data controllers and data processors. Welcome to today. So, sishukumiso sana mhla siqale, I think, if not December, where we got communication, and it really was a subject matter that is close to me in as far as the authority enabling us as entities or accountable institutions to issue a pledge that will say, as an entity, what do we stand for in commitment to safeguarding information. So for Liberty Eswatini, it was close to us to say we are committed to safeguarding personal information with integrity and care, embedding privacy as a core value in our culture, our practices and processes. We further pledge to uphold the highest standard of security and compliance whilst ensuring that every interaction respects our stakeholders' rights particularly, and it's coming out strongly through the theme that we have for this Protection Day, which is take control of your data. By continuously improving our practices and restricting unauthorized access, this is very, very important. We further thrive to protect data and maintain the trust our customers place in us, because remember, there's an exchange. They give us their information and they trust that we will be able to actually safeguard it. So as a strategic priority for Liberty, what does it mean? I'm not pushing the regulation aside, Commissioner, but I'm saying above everything, it is in our governance DNA as Liberty Life to ensure that not only are we feeling compelled to treat this as a checklist, but it also falls in our control to make sure that from a governance perspective, that is when we're talking about guidelines, when we're talking about processes, we're talking about agreements, it more or less brings us close to aligning with what the regulatory landscape requires. Also, again, from what we've seen from a global data privacy perspective, we cannot look at this act in isolation. It is also forming a basis of human rights, particularly in the protection of minors. For some of us as accountable institutions, we are here, we are a mix of industries. We deal with personal information and sensitive data across the spheres of the life cycle of a human being. Some of us deal with information from minors. So it's been a priority to actually sensitize the issue of managing data privacy, particularly in that scope. From a control of data privacy risk, we've seen that it's very important to prioritize the compromise, particularly of personal information and sensitive data. The experience across the industries from a health sector to an insurance company will be different from a bank, but it's also in understanding the information that you have in your custody and being able to classify it. We'll see it in the course of this presentation as we go through it. What is leadership's responsibility in this regard, particularly for Liberty? It's been quite a task to say it's no longer an issue or a legal issue, an IT issue anymore. What it's seen to be is that it is a core governance risk and trust matter. Without having to make it seem it's a checklist, or without making it seem it's a by the way, it's getting organizations to actually see how can they actually, with the lack of a better word, monetize the opportunity. Because remember, if clients or customers or a population that which you collect personal information for trust you with their information, it means that they will be able to actually place more trust and more services with you, and you have that customer in your management for longer. So what has it meant? It's meant that the role of leadership is very, very key to set the tone from the top and to promote a culture of compliance with data-related, data privacy-related issues. The organizational culture, behavior, priority, and messages of senior leadership strongly influences how seriously data privacy should be taken, and also it comes across in the organization. It should exercise close oversight of the management of data privacy, including breaches. Amongst the other activities that we can actually see, and actually we've seen at Liberty, is that and rollout of the act, the first thing that Liberty did was to be able to define roles and responsibilities. Hence why I'm here. I'm the Data Privacy Officer for Liberty Life Eswatini. This also comes with that, then we ask for a budget. How then do we do that? Because we have buy-in and there's a tone from the top, it's easier for leadership to then be able to prioritize the commitment to skilling of the actual data officer themselves, to actually allow that they also provide support to the data office to say, I will need capacity, or I will need certain time set aside so that I can speak to staff. Other than that, it requires resources and support. Implementing a data privacy program is very strenuous. I think we saw earlier reference to a data mapping exercise which is due on the 31st of March. That is a work in progress even now. So you can imagine the capacity that it's required from process owners up to the data privacy officers, and also ongoing employee training and awareness. The modeling of ethical behavior is what we've seen. You'd be so surprised at how a simple gesture of a clean desk policy goes a long way. Where we are moving away from paper to a paperless environment, there's more of a burden to ensure that there's security digitally. But of course, ensure that staff, if I'm standing up to go to the washroom for a minute, the culture must be there to lock my laptop. The culture must be there that I'm not leaving paper lying around on any desk. And then obviously, that in itself, we've seen that it then cascades to us being able to create a strong privacy culture, not just a tick box. The other issue that we've seen is that the leadership relationship with the authority is one which is very, very key. I'm not saying that we do get favor when it comes to enforcement, we don't. You need to explain the when, the why, the how, but it's really to say, if you are occasionally touching base on implementation of new programs, rolling out of systems, you are able to create visibility with the EDPA to say, look, this is what we're doing, can we please get guidance? The relationship is very, very key. At any point, there's an incident, it's easier to actually rely on that rapport that already exists. Our 5-year journey in implementing across this act has been, well, in no particular order, but I'll take you through the slides from the further left and across to the end to the right. What was important was to prioritize what communicates to our customers, the customer-facing correspondence, and that is, in the first instance, a privacy statement notice. Some of us here have websites, some of us here have customer-facing portals. Are there any statements, or are we enabling our data subjects to interact with any statement that then says, at this point, you are giving me personal information, do you consent? I, as an entity, assure you I will use the information for what I'm collecting it for. And then, of course, the reason why we are here, we declared that indeed there is a DPO at liberty, and also to ensure that that registration or declaration of the data privacy officer was acknowledged and approved by the EDPA. Further on, in concurrence, the training had to start, because no sooner are you active on an act, the sooner you incur a breach. It's never nice to incur a breach or an incident. But in any case, let it be an instance where you already have an incident response plan. Remember, colleagues, what we have here is data privacy, which should already be forming part of your information risk policy. Information risk policy cannot exist without having nuggets of data privacy in them. I like the fact that we also mentioned earlier the issue of cybersecurity. For some odd reason, the system is hacked. What would happen in an instance where a customer or a data subject wants to get assistance and has a data request? We would not be able to actually assist that customer because the system is down. So in essence, part of the training and awareness encompasses data subject right process that is visible to all staff, and also being able as an organization to conduct what you call data protection impact assessment, which is where you are able to then identify or report to the regulator in instances where you are about to embark on processing sensitive data or migrating data across the border. And also from what we've seen is that collectively, I, as a data privacy representative, I myself have information risk that I can incur as a data privacy office. So I am part of the information asset register that makes visible whatever risks that we might incur as a data privacy office. And then obviously the recurring or occasional monitoring review exercises that we go through as an entity, time and again just to track awareness, just to measure the consciousness and the culture that it must be aligned with the data privacy program. And then obviously, if you're looking at the very, very important drivers to say we need a policy. So the policies, processes are key in this instance. We do have them as liberty. And then you're also talking to the guidelines, especially around consent, as we can see. So this is just a summarized map, but obviously it's not restricted to, because as I have been informed earlier by the Honourable Minister, data privacy is not a destination, it's a journey. The milestones that we can actually report on, I think with pride, is that Liberty was amongst the first entities to register as a data controller. And we were awarded the first license in 2024. And again, we were able to renew in 2025. We are due for a renewal again in 2026. Can you please clap your hands for us? And obviously, one of the key activities, because it's an ongoing, it's a journey, we do provide support and we track our vendors. Remember, we're not doing the data privacy activities in isolation. We've placed in services that we do share personal information and sensitive data with. So those vendors, we are liable to ensure that they are actually registered with the EDPA as either data processors also or data controllers. But that in itself can be evidenced by the certificate itself. The lessons that we've learned, we need to keep constant track of what activities the EDPA has so that we don't lose momentum. We are also not found wanting in as far as not meeting deadlines. We are also responsive when it comes to security compromises. Having a robust data privacy program is very key. Staff and employees being aware of what's expected of them should there be an incident. And also data management. Data management is a vast topic since this act. You're talking about the quality of the data. If you don't need it, don't collect it. Nah? And then data classifications. Our processes at times, it's not like a Bible that you can share with your neighbor. The enhancement of process documents guidelines is very, very key, because we also need to be able to classify whether it's an internal document, whether it's a document that needs or can be made public. You're talking about encryption now for us that are constantly online, especially around email, where then it also introduces data labeling. You need to be able to understand that indeed, I am sending an email to a person who's the rightful person to receive that email, for example, and that I've labeled it that they cannot forward it to someone else. And then you're also talking about data access control. Data access control also becomes key, where you find that some incidences, their nature, when you investigate, you'll find that that person was not even supposed to have access to that data in the first place. So data access control is very, very key. Giving access, providing access to people who will use the information. Skilling of the governing office, particularly the role that the EDPA has taken is very, very much appreciated in the instance of me, if I must say. When it comes to them actually constantly engaging, we do have interactions once or twice a year that they actually invite us on, for example, the data mapping exercise that they conducted. And just training across the organization, because it's always an ongoing exercise. It never stops. There are new things, the universe improves daily, and the universe brings you curveballs. But in a nutshell, that's us as Liberty Life. I hope I was able to provide insights on you as attendees here to actually share what it is that you can take away from our experience so far. Thank you.
Ungehle shongo. Siyabonga. Ngicela phinde simkhuthathe ngetandla. So I will just only take 2 questions, depending on the questions, maybe ngathatha wesithathu. But what I appreciate is that lento data protection, ngizamelele tandla. I see you yaka IT. Siyabana mos. I see you nje yaka IT. Uyeva mduduzi. Leka railway nje ubatshele nje ukuthi lento data protection ayisiyakho yale firma. Number 2, we have other adjacent policies that we need to ensure that we have. And those policies must be up to date and factor in that. Bayakusaba mina into okubuda mina ungahlupheki. Umbudo ngihlala nginayo. So one of the things that you've made mention ingenzaba ye budget. Uthithe Gogo na Silwane la kunabo CEO bese kunaleli bandla lelaceleni kwami leletibuko lelapho CFO. What could you encourage us, especially from a leadership perspective? I'm trying to build up to Fisiwe and his team coming through. Lenzaba yokubudgetela letinto leti bukeka ngathi itolo betide umsebenzi noma itolo betingekho. So it is easy for them to budget for i-typex, lama paper photocopy. It's easy for the CEOs to budget for for all the things that we actually don't need, like a photocopying machine, like a laptop. No, it's a photocopying machine. We tingela. Long angichazela ngamiphi imali ukuthi uyithengela nje photocopying machine, because you can send the document and sign online and it stays there. I want you to encourage the banda leli yalibona manje lelo ke lokuthi bayithambise le pen naleli banda leli la ngemva yalibona mos labo CFO when it comes to budgeting for these things, and then the risk if we don't provide for it.
Yes, thank you so much, Gogo and Silwane. I think it didn't quite come out strongly when I got to the part speaking about the tone from the top. But one of them was to highlight was that the buy-in and the priority of leadership to actually being aware of the importance and pursuing the culture of data privacy is when it comes to resourcing. And we all know that resourcing requires funds. It requires capacity. The budget can be actually impacted by a whole lot of things where you now need to hire people, where you now need to do enhancements on systems. Our CE or commissioner in this regard did mention that the design of systems before, actually the systems we're currently using now may not have actually had data privacy in mind. And we've had to now go back and actually first train our leadership, make them aware of the importance of data protection and privacy. And then in that sense, they are easily in a position to take leadership if, for example, there's procurement of a system. They'll literally put their hand up that, can I be able to control access at any point? Can I be able to mask data? Because that's the other issue. Can I be able to mask data? Can I be able to anonymize? If I want to now destroy a record after a certain period, can the system enable me? Because what we are avoiding is an instance where we're now falling back on manual interventions which are not traceable. But it's just to mention again, to answer your question, that the importance around the buy-in of leadership, particularly budget, is these little nuances that I've mentioned.
Siyabonga Shonga, ngicela simkhuthaze ngetanda. I've decided to step down Fisiwe from the podium because I'm going to invite you now to take the podium and lead us in a discussion. I think so bacelele bazakwabo lokuthi baphathi ngosiyami ipen ayithambathambe ngasicela imali ngoba some of the systems we bought them ages ago angitelanga kibo but aze baqanise ngiyabesaba siyacela mndolo saphela nganibonga nonke nawe Mnguni lokuthi le system le bese isebenzisa kadzeni beyide encryption. Angcina khona lapho Fisiwe, please take the podium and invite your guests.
Thank you, Program Director. I believe that Nomvuyo's presentation was already a preamble to my role today, so it's going to make everything so much better. My name is Fisiwe Vilane. I work for the Eswatini Communications Commission, and part of my 8 to 5 is the intersection between the public and the organization. So I believe that today we are here to discuss data protection in terms of building the trust of our stakeholders and also in terms of leadership accountability. Nomvuyo's already shared, I will keep referring to her presentation because it was very enlightening around the part of data protection not being a tech problem. So we always think servers, we always think encryption, we always think things, also the legal advisors and fine print and all of those things. But actually, as a budget line, not just for IT, as well, it speaks to our governance, it speaks to how we lead our organizations. So the panel discussion today looks at how leadership sets the tone and how it actually enforces our data protection results as an organization. I'm excited and I'm glad to be hosting a stellar cast, if I may call it, of experts that are leading organizations that have actually been the benchmark in terms of all of them are registered with the EDPA They were actually part of the first organizations to register with the EDPA. They also come from different sectors, so this discussion will give us a unique view that is brought by all our, well, most of our sectors in the economy. First up, in no particular order, it's because he was sitting next to me, and also I think I have bias, Manchester United, you know. He's the chief executive at Standard Bank Eswatini. Can we please clap hands for Babe Faguts and Vuselelo? I also know that in terms of our personal data, our bank accounts are one of the most sensitive sets. You can choose your seat, yeah, you can sit anyway. It's actually one of the most sensitive sets of data that we have. You can know everything about me, but the minute you know my bank account, who gives me money, who do I pay, what Ganeshi orders, you have power over me. And I'm very jittery around you, because if you have 2, 3 drinks, then what if you start spilling the beans? So the banking sector has a huge role to play. Second, I will call upon the CEO of the Municipal Council of Mbabane, also giving us a unique perspective from the local government side. So let's please clap hands for Gciniwe Fagutse. We also think data protection is more on the corporate side, but actually it extends to, you know, government-owned institutions and also to government itself. There is also the CEO of ENPF Noma in full, Eswatini National Provident Fund, Futhi Tembe. Can we please clap hands for her? They have been on a digital transformation move lately, and the move from paperless to fully system-based transactions can actually be a tricky one in terms of data protection considerations. So we are hoping to learn more on that. We also have from Instacash, the managing director, another one that could have easily worn his Manchester shirt. Mandla Nxumalo, I know we don't know the name Mandla, Chicks, but he's here as Mandla today. And he will be speaking to us, especially in terms of businesses that have been built from the ground up. I think the advantage that we have as organizations that have a group link or that have head office is that some of the governance structures are already in existence, and you basically just use that template to build on. However, when you build a company from the ground up, you then need to establish and actually build those systems. The last one, and representing the managing director for EEC, is the legal counsel and company secretary, Babe Tabiso Masina. Can we please clap hands for him? Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining me for this discussion. I think a lot has been said to introduce the topic around tone at the top, and the main purpose of the discussion now will be to understand how you guys at the top, C-suite, that's what they call it, influence how the whole organization then is aligned to data protection. So my first question, and this one is to all of you, how does the organization prioritize privacy? And I'm looking for practical day-to-day things and making sure that it's not just in the boardroom, but it translates to even the receptionist or the security. I think they spoke about the role of the security guard earlier. Chicks, maybe you can start on that one. But it's a question for everyone, so. Okay, Futhi seems she's ready to go first.
Thank you, Fisiwe. Good morning, everyone, my fellow panelists. Thank you for the question, Fisiwe, and thank you to CEO ESCCOM for the invite. As a start, please allow me to make a disclaimer. Disclaimer, let's say manje at ENPF, it's still work in progress. So we are changing now and again on how to get to the final destination. So as of now, sisaqat food. And kuqat food, I would like to just give a brief history and where we are now. So when the act came into effect, there was 2022, 2023. We quickly, I remember that we asked Boss Melane to come to the office just to talk to us, Gutsi Mamba, what is the requirement? And after having learned from the people behind, we then quickly appointed 2 data privacy officers amongst the managers who have been doing the role. But late last year, we then identified that it's a huge requirement, especially because ENPF has digitalized. So we, for it to get the attention of leadership now, we then decided to create a new unit that reports to the CEO. So we created a data transformation unit, and now data privacy issues are now sitting in that unit, and the officer now comes from there on a monthly basis, reports to the CEO. And we also formed a committee, that data privacy committee, that is chaired by the officer, and on a quarterly basis, they report to ESCCOM. So that's how we've tried to incorporate it in our daily activities as the leadership of ENPF. And over and above, to ensure that everybody is involved. We do continuous training, awareness to staff, and we've also included the privacy metrics to all staff members who are involved, performance contracts. So in a nutshell, that's how we've taken the journey, and that's how we ensure that it gets the leadership attention.
True tone at the top.
Thank you very much, and humble greetings to everyone. So for us, from a local government perspective, well, more specifically me, because I think tone from the top at this point would literally be bringing it to the C-suite. So the first thing that we constantly are reminding ourselves from a public sector perspective is that we have a truly live social contract with the citizens, and our relationship is based on trust. So when suddenly we now talk about issues of data privacy, I think the first thing that we must look at is zone in on that relationship, and really the Data Protection Act has actually made us dust up that social contract and start really realizing that even the citizens we are now dealing with and the citizens we give service are now very conscious about issues of data privacy. So for a legislated body, there are pieces of legislation that sort of make you stop and pause and wonder if we are truly now understanding the dispensation we're living in. And maybe later I will touch on those. But when you speak about tone from the top, and I think more specifically to me, it then means I'm literally the face and the voice of what people perceive as trust. So when they don't trust local government, in essence, they don't trust the leadership. So people should be not wary to give council or local authorities information because they fear that their information will be leaked or we shall use it untoward. Now, from a local government perspective, as a legislated body, we generally deal with a lot of data that legislation says we must collect. So when you talk about tone from the top, it's really about changing the culture within. Because I think when you collect information, because the law gives you the powers to do so, sometimes the issues around privacy can be taken lightly. For example, we do a general valuation for the sake of levying rates and taxes. Now, if you think about it, that's really critical information because I know your street name, I know where you live, I can tell you how many properties you own, I can tell you how much they're worth, I can tell you what you do, what you don't do. So because we collect that data and enabled by legislation, you could find that the tone around how we then treat the data is taken for granted. So leadership from the top and the tone really at this point is really translating what we know as legislation now since 2022, moving it from lip service to really bringing it more practical, from the customer-facing level into middle management, but equally taking it to looking at the legislations that we are given as a local authority to operate. But almost more truthfully, it's constantly remembering that we have a social contract with citizens. And once they lose trust in us as a local authority, it even becomes harder to enforce what is legally the right for us to perform as an entity. So yes, it's very critical to talk about leadership from the top when you talk about data privacy. Thank you.
Ndolo, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having us in this very interesting conversation. I work for an institution that only sells trust. Before there was data legislation globally, you know, this year the institution is turning 164 years old. And over that period, one thing that has kept us going is trust. Now, what does trust mean? It's more than trust in a relationship between two married people. It's trust that you as an individual can trust us to keep your information safely and securely, notwithstanding who you are married to. And that's a standard of trust that's higher than how we live every day. So it is that trust that has enabled us as an organization to keep your money safely and make sure that you can access your money when you need it without anybody else knowing about it. It is that trust that has enabled our group. There's what is called Protection of Information Act in South Africa. It came into effect in about 2013. It found us on the journey. Eswatini Data Protection. We were established in Eswatini in 1973. Some of you were not born. But from that time, we were already collecting information in Maswati, and because of the trust, a lot of you are still customers of the bank. Even your children are customers of the bank. And that trust and data privacy are congruent with our organization. That would be
Thank
my
you,
opening
Ndolo.
statement.
Mr. Masina would like to.
No, thank you very much. And the question was posed to all of us, so certainly, if you see where. Can I start by apologizing for my managing director? When we separated at 5:30 p.m., he was clear that he was coming here. He even remembered that it was at Sibane. But this morning, unfortunately, the life of a CEO had intervened and took him elsewhere. So angvusele the fellow panelists, angvusele Maswati Lamahle. I think to your question, beyond what the colleagues have said, because the journey is similar, these are things that we do. So in order to prioritize privacy at leadership and entity level, we have gone and put it in the risk register. So it's a strategic risk that gets to be reported to ESCO. So ESCO monitors it. How are we doing? It is tools such as the privacy notices. You open a laptop at the EEC, you are at EXCO, you're at middle management, you are ordinary staff, you will see a notice that speaks to data protection and the importance of privacy. You go into the performance scorecards of the executives, you'll see that. So those things allow us, beyond maybe what the legislation says, because it scares the executives that as head of the data controller, if there's a breach and it is attributed to the company, it is I who is going to be, that is the CEO now, spending 10 years. That allows you to move and prioritize. I thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and greetings to the rest of the panel and everyone here. I'm sorry for not starting. It was a bit too soon for me. I haven't worn a suit in a while, so I just needed to pick up the decorum from the fellow panelists. But anyway, I come from a background where you have to be seen to be you have to be independent or seen to be independent, or credible or be seen to be credible, which is a higher standard. That's where we were with Futi and Vuselelo here. So having gone through that kind of structure and coming to a space where we are moving into a sort of a venture capital space where you meet a lot of entrepreneurs. I'll make an example for in one of the businesses I'm with. It's a tech business. So people that are clever or that are clever with programming things come with a product and then have to graduate to a banking setup. So moving from what they know, tech people like to work on their own on the side and never really interact with people, and then they get a license to start working in a space where they have to deal with personal people's data. It was quite a shift for me, but having had the background that I'm saying, I had to primarily be the leader that is shaping that direction because I had been there before. When you start with something that has never been there before, Standard Bank I worked with, it's 164 years, as you know, and then suddenly you have to lead Instacash, what's that? Non-bank, non-telco in a space where we have never been. Trying to build that, I had to take it personally. So our DPO can tell you, he talks directly to me because of where we are in terms of evolution. He's already at school trying to develop that because we want to build that. For us, having not been there, having not existed elsewhere before, trust was the biggest issue that we had. So we needed to, when we did our risk assessment, it moved from just a departmental thing. It became what our business can stand and fall on. So if it graduates to that, it goes straight to the board, it gets straight to leadership. So that's how we took it very serious, and that's why we were one of the first few to actually move into that space. So it's a different space for me altogether, but it had to sit there, and it will sit there until we can build to where we want to be. We are still very small, but our ambitions are big enough, and they scare me, and we are getting there. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to you, Mr. Masina. I'd like for us to be a fly on the wall in the boardroom when the act was passed. It's a compliance requirement. You need to abide. But what were the discussions in there to say, do we register, do we not register? What does this mean for us? What were some of the pushbacks? I wouldn't like you to speak about the positives, but also just around some of the resistance that came in from other quarters within the boardroom in taking the decision.
No, thank you for that, Fisiwe. I think I have to start with the positive. A lot of our processes at the EEC are automated, and our board is very clear that we actually are running on digital platforms. Now, the fear of being hacked to the extent that we now breach the data protection was an impetus that was on their part. They were pushing management to say, we've heard about this act. You're bringing these tools, policies to be approved. Do them fast. So we had that support. But within the people that report to EXCO, it's a fairly new act. So people were doing interface with the public. People were collecting information. You now come and say there's a data protection officer that must be designated and must have direct, almost, line of sight to the MD even. There are people that you are trampling on their territory and previous privileges. They begin to say, no. That is why we then, as management and the board, come up with data sharing request procedures, just not only to comply with the law, but to manage the transition. Then there's a lot, MFC, that my board did to get here, to the extent that all resources were given. IT was very clear that this is us. You understand this is a digital company, so we are best placed to protect. But ESCOM came through and gave guidelines very early on the characteristics of what a DPO could be. So by the time we went to board, it was not like I were trying to get new designations. The law is clear. You can't mark your own homework. Let somebody who is outside of the process look at these things. So I believe that's what happened in our boardroom, and I'm glad to say that we're not there yet 100%, but it's good. Registration also attests to that. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think the one sentiment that keeps coming through is that it is a journey, and I believe that the organizations represented here are at different levels of the journey, and it cannot really be the same across all of them. But Ndolo, my question is, I think some of the organizations have shared how empowered the DPO is. You're talking about them having a dotted line to the MD, to the CEO. How have you empowered your DPO at Standard Bank, having done this for 100 and whatever years? But just in terms of the person that is there and them knowing they have the power to even hold you accountable.
I think at the bank we're a regulated entity. Why are we regulated? Because our business is safeguarding customers' funds, and that requires a certain level of regulation. So we're used to compliance. It's not a foreign philosophy when it comes to our business. Now, when it comes to data protection, we use data for various things, as you can imagine. We use data for understanding our customers and making sure that when we design products that are suitable for what customers are looking out for. But we also use data for regulatory purposes, because when you open an account, the law requires that we have certain information that a customer has to provide to the bank for us to open that account. So there are legal requirements that we need to uphold. So therefore, our data office, DPO you call them?
Yes. Linda.
Data protection officer. I sit on a data governance meeting that I chair every month, where we discuss all things data. This is a very important part of the bank. There is a monthly risk management committee at the bank that is chaired by the chief executive, also just focusing on risk coming out of compliance, coming out of the data office, and we get to converse about that. It is an agenda at EXCO every month. It also is a board agenda every quarter when we have our committees of the board, both from a technology and also from a total board perspective.
Great, thank you. Linda is here, so she will keep you in check in case you are misleading us. But that actually paints the picture. At ENPF, we've also got a DPO, and you've spoken about how they then report on a regular basis to management. But what are some of the practical resources that they have that enables them to fully discharge this responsibility?
All right. Thanks, Fisiwe, for the question. So to ensure empowerment of the
DPO. I think they are called different things in different places, but yeah, DPO.
Of the privacy officer. We've decided at ENPF to approach it in 4 pillars. So the pillar number one talks to clear authority and reporting. So what they do as the unit, which is where the the privacy officer becomes in charge. What they do is, I've already said that they report directly to the CEO, and I've already stated that there is the committee that reports to the EXCO leadership. And then what they've done is designed a formal and documented escalation path where they've designed their metrics which they need to report on. And a resource which is important to them that they have is a budget. That's critical. Before the requirement of this position, we never used to have a budget. So now they get a fully fledged budget because I've stated that it is now a unit. So there is a huge budget talking to data now at ENPF because we do appreciate that data is king. And we do appreciate that at ENPF we hold a huge amount of data. For all of you actually in this room, we've got data for each and every one of you. So, and then the other resource which I've spoken about is falling under the data budget is the training budget for them to be empowered. And then under the second pillar is, you've already spoken, the access to resources and decision making. The unit, together with the committee, they've got a right to stop projects which did not follow the checklist of if data was considered. So they've got, we've empowered them, we've given them the decision to stop each project or each procurement that's being done if it has not ticked all the boxes. And then the third pillar that they follow is integrated governance and accountability, whereby privacy KPIs are now part of what they track. And the privacy KPIs are also embedded to EXCO dashboards, as I've already mentioned. And then lastly, I've already spoke about it's the culture, the training, and the support and the awareness of the office and together with the entire staff of ENPF.
Thank you. I was looking for Mfogotisi because I was hearing you saying he's got a huge budget. So now I'm looking at him.
Can I correct? I did mention when I opened my opening statement that we've now moved the office to a different unit. So that was moved in September last year. Okay. So very soon we'll be coming with a new request of a new data privacy officer. Because you will recall from your office that we've registered 2 privacy officers, but because we've employed a new person, so it is now moved from IT to a different data unit.
Altogether.
Yeah.
Okay. I almost said Ndolo, but you know, there's too many Ndolos. So anyway, you spoke to us about how some of the data collection or even the data storage is actually in the law that establishes local government. So you are, for example, expected to publish us ratepayers when we are owing rates, and everyone can see that kind of data. We've seen Mbabane put in some cameras on the streets as well, which means you are able to see who I'm working with at what time and on what day. I just want us to look at that balance in terms of then the organization. How do you keep the balance to say, yes, by law, I'm empowered to actually collect this information, but again, I need to be responsible in terms of how I use that data.
No, that's very true. And the real Ndolo has spoken, and I will try the lesser Ndolo. Imagine. But the question you're asking, Fisiwe, is very important because I remember very clearly when people started seeing cameras coming up on the streets, we had mixed views. Because some people really viewed it as a tool for surveillance. Yet internally for us, it's an enablement that digital infrastructure brings for you to now safely deliver what you want to call a smart city. So the tenets of smart cities are really around issues that are basic: public safety. Do I feel safe to walk around my city? Is my business safe? Are my investments safe? So when investors are sitting wherever they sit and the first decision they want to make is, do I move to that city? These are some of the things that come up. So the first thing is the viewing of the surveillance equipment itself. Some say it's surveillance, I say it's a tool for public safety. So that speaks firstly to me, then educating the citizens, to getting them to the space where I'm at, to perceive it right. And there are, of course, things that we then must do, because trust is earned. You actions that you must do. It comes with education as well. But one of the critical things we had to do, even internally, and it's a journey truly, because you are now changing the culture internally to say we are stewards of data. And while you may have it, you must be careful how you use it and keep it. So when you go back to the cameras, one, we had to start engaging publicly in a discourse that tries to shift the perception to what it is that we are doing with the cameras. So some of the things we looked at are around the principles of proportionality, of course, that you don't place them where you don't need them. So that was one of the debates we had to go in, because there's about 60 of them now. So the first question becomes, where do you place them? And for what purposes are you placing them? So that becomes a whole debate and a discussion, because how you place it also says, what are you trying to achieve with it? If it's a security tool for public safety, then I will not place it in a certain way in a park. I will place it in a certain space in the park so that I can be able to get the information that I need. So those discussions and debates had to happen so that when you position it, it is a tool for what you are trying to make it to be. But secondly, we then had to talk about issues around the information itself, the sovereignty of the data, how it's kept, who views it. And many people think that I sit in my office and I start checking that, there's Mvuselelo, where is he going in his car? But we had to look around those protocols. Who has access to the information? The room in which the information is kept is secured. We also had to get into discussions, and of course the regulator helped us greatly there around access and the usage of the information. And coming from a private sector space where one was in the telecoms, it became a critical discussion when you thought about the debates they have in telecoms around when a customer says, I lost my phone, please tell me where it is now. So suddenly we were placed with that challenge where people walk in and say, I lost my phone at the bus rank, please find it. So we had to follow the protocols and make sure that issues of access and who uses the information are protected. You can't just walk in at any point. I don't even walk into that room myself that keeps the data. We have signed an MOU with the police, and they're the only ones that have access to it. And even them, they must requisition it in a specific fashion and format. So it had to do, and it's still a continuous journey of educating the citizens so that they embrace it as an enhancement in a technology that is going to bring about public safety. But quickly moving to, you asked about, you specifically spoke about rates. Now that is one of the things that from a local government space now, not exclusively to Mbabane, we do need to then spend time looking at our legislation, because you are right, the Rating Act does give local authorities to say if Gciniwe owns property too and it's in arrears, the law says advertise it, and the lawyers will demand that you do in case you move on to the next levels of the process. So we are now sitting as well in discussions where we are saying, now what do we do to then look at our laws so that our laws also are sensitive to issues of data privacy? So you will notice that one of the things we now try to do, well, you wouldn't because you pay your rates, Visiwe, thank God for that. So you wouldn't know the journey you would go in case you don't pay them. But let me play it for you. If you happen to err in that side, we now put intentional effort to try and locate you without going to the newspapers. When we get there, it's simply because it's a vacant property, we cannot find you, we've advertised, we've called, and the numbers that we have, we do not reach you. So some of the initiatives and programs that we're now doing is intentional KYC, so that when I look for Fisiwe, I don't have to go and advertise you to find you. But generally, citizens are comfortable when I don't know where they are. So then it becomes a challenge for me. So you need to educate to say, come forth, give me your contact so that I can talk to you more privately. So we avoid using the routes that the law legislates that we use. But it is a journey, and the Rating Act is under review, thank God. So the Rating Act and other legislations that we utilize are going to be reviewed and looked at from the spectrum and the view of data privacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mbabane residents, I believe, have been pacified. They know that their data is safe, or even us that visit Mbabane. So Chicks, you've spoken about, I think I speak to you as Instacash, but also you have your hands in a whole lot of ventures across sectors. Just in terms of the organizations that are not very formal, and the conversations in terms of then convincing day-to-day entrepreneurs on why it's important to have data protection as part of your operations. What were some of the objections, maybe when you went to your board or in some of the shareholdings that you sit in, around why do we really need to do it?
Okay, thank you. Firstly, let me thank Keynote for reminding us about the cameras I'd forgotten and the things I've done. Anyway, so when you're starting out, the biggest priority is to get to profitability. Obviously, this is a challenge to put this kind of issue at the top of the priorities. How will we survive? How will we make sure this business becomes profitable as soon as possible? So it is not the easiest thing. But I think I work with a very good team on one of the projects that I work on. This is what we decided to do. I want to put this nicely. And we had to have serious engagements with the regulator too. When you're starting up, we wanted to run the business at a certain level where we don't have to take more personal data than we needed to. We had to say, okay, we'd rather have our wallets max at this level, not grow beyond that, so that people can be enticed to join, so that we can keep minimal personal data. In future, we will then engage and say, no, we want to increase to this level, but that's where the business would be. Imagine wanting a blood sample on day one, which stops someone from coming or joining that business. So also taking things level by level, understanding where you are. So if someone is starting up, yes, we have an issue that is not a priority. But if you are coming in and saying, I want all this list of things, which then stops people from being customers of the business. So now we are actually doing a double blow to the whole thing. So you are dealing with difficult issue, but we are still making it much more difficult. So it's also understanding the legislation. I think we had a nice discussion with our compliance people at some point to say, your job as an internal compliance is not to be the best compliance in the country. Your job in this business is to make sure we do business responsibly within the framework of what is there. There is no immediate reward of being the best. It's like having money on Monopoly. It won't help you. So you help us to err on the side of caution. And it helps with businesses that are starting up. What good is it to you being a champion on something that your investors will not really excited about? But you must hit a balance and make sure that you are within that. So that's the approach that we have. It's difficult, but you have to find a way to navigate around it that keeps you within the law.
A juggling act indeed. I would like for us to take a break, not really a break, but just to allow the audience to ask 2-3 questions before I ask my summative one. So if there are any hands among the audience, I'll ask the MC to help in terms of identifying the people that have questions. There are no hand, oh, there is a hand at the back. The explanations have been very clear, so there are no questions.
I do not have any amount of money. Good morning to everyone. Thank you to ESCCOM for having us. My question is very, very brief and straight to the point. We're speaking a lot around data privacy, more explicitly the act itself. But I have an interest on the storage of this data that we're trying to keep very private. There is a tendency, or pretty much is quite prevalent in the country, that most of our data is stored somewhere on a cloud, which is a cross-border type of a transaction. That's one. I do have a keen interest on how, because we haven't seen much of data centers within the country. You can probably count them with your two hands. Most organizations still do not have that. So what assurances can we have in terms of this data being stored locally? And maybe from ESCCOM's perspective, what has been the climate been looking like in terms of this data not exiting the country? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I believe we all heard it. I want to actually put it right onto your lap, Ndolo, because maybe when we think of cross-border and group and processing of data for decision-making outside of this country, we know that banks take our data somewhere, especially when we apply for financial help. So I will ask you to just take us through that. And then I believe the last part spoke to Stelo's point around how, as the Data Protection Authority, they view or they expect from organizations that actually share their data outside. I know that it applies to everyone because you've got suppliers that you give our data to. You've got social partners as well that you work with. You've also got government and other stakeholders as well. So everyone, yeah, gets affected by this one, but please, Vuselele.
Hey, uteka yona. So we contract with Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure as a bank to store some of our data. We have data warehouses both in the country and outside the country. We have to go through a licensing process or an authorization process from both the central bank and the DPO to store data, customers' data or bank data, some of it locally and some of it on the cloud. Obviously, the real advantage is that Amazon Web Services will spend $10 billion securing the infrastructure that they have on the cloud, an amount as a bank would never have, would never be able to have. But because they've got so many other companies that they're hosting on the cloud, it just makes sense for them to spend that much money, and for those of us that need that access and the security, just to plug our data there and leverage that infrastructure. And I think our regulators have been flexible in understanding that. Obviously, what is important to them is that they can access the data when they need them, when they need it, and so do we. It's very important to us as well. So it's a question of being able to demonstrate that accessing that data and that data in wherever it is kept is really secure, and that we don't generally take that for granted. So to that extent, it does work, and we as a bank are part of that process already.
Thank you for sharing that best practice. Do you have anything to share, Assistant?
A junior comment now. All right, I think when it comes to transport flow of personal data, there are three models. One model is what we call data residency. That's a model that you'll find in China and Russia, where they will tell you that no personal data will leave the country. Our law is not like that. The second model is that there's a localization clause in other legislations where it says for every data that you transfer outside the country, you must keep a copy in the country. If you look at the legislation of Zimbabwe, Zambia, they have that localization clause. In our act, we don't. Then the third model is what we call adequacy. It's based on adequacy decision, what is provided for in our law, where we require you to convince us that where you are sending the data, they have a data protection law that has the same adequate level of protection as in Eswatini, or proper safeguards. But again, under our section 33.3 of the Act, the EDPA may actually indicate or pronounce certain categories of data that may not, under any circumstances, be transferred outside the country. So that decision has not been yet made. But again, when you look at the data residency and everything, you wonder whether in this digital age it's still possible to say no data will leave the country. That's why, for us, we use the pre-authorization model, and we have a pre-authorization form that is available on our website when you want to transfer data outside the country, for you to get an authorization first so that we check those boxes. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw a couple of hands go up. So my question will be my closing question after we address the questions, because I see our time is nearing the end.
Good day, everyone. I'm Debbie from Computronics. I have a question about consent. Now, we've all been in the position where we want to sign up for a service. So you want to buy something from Microsoft, and you've got to sign a 95-page thing saying, yes, I agree. I want to know what in Eswatini are we doing to prevent consent being a tick box exercise, and I'd like to hear from our major institutions how that is addressed. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can have another one.
Good day, everyone. I just want to ask, my question is not posed to the panelists only, maybe also the ground. My question is, what practical steps have you taken or have you found most effective in embedding a culture of privacy across an organization? And also, how do you get to have non-technical staff to genuinely care about data protection, not to just comply with the policies only? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another hand in the room? My last one.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. For me, it would be to ask in terms of confidentiality, how do we fully ensure that 100% we do maintain confidentiality when we protect data? Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that all those questions apply to the sectors that are represented here. So I'll ask my last question, and as you answer, try and incorporate the area around how you ensure confidentiality, but also around the non-technical staff and how we try and bring them on board in understanding and prioritizing our data protection initiatives. So I want to hire you so that you join Stelo's team in advocating, especially for the organizations that haven't registered, because we've still got a couple of organizations that haven't registered in Eswatini. So if you were to sit with those CEOs, they are your contemporaries. So if you were to sit with those CEOs, how would you sell the whole idea around data protection, compliance, registration, and the day-to-day implementation of the principles? You have had time to get used to the suit, chicks. So now you can.
Okay, I think on the last one, I think it is easier to do business with people that have similar sort of supervision, values supervision, and all those things. So it makes it much easier. And then talking to the 95-page what's the document to be signed, I think I'm a big, big supporter of legal documents. But at the bottom of it is you don't do business with someone that you can trust. So we are following this data protection thing because we are building trust between the businesses that are participating. A 95-page document will not necessarily save you if you are dealing with a bad person. So I think let's build a culture and support it by legal documents. By the time legal people come in, you've already agreed whether to do business with a person or not. When I was in credit, we used to say you back the jockey and not the horse. So deal with people that are credible, that's the first thing. On the last one, culture is having everyone in the organization actually taking it as a culture. Culture is lived. So I can come to call all the staff and tell them we are a very solid business under data protection, and then I go out and be the first one to leak who the new sent money to. If I don't leave it, it doesn't happen. It's like timekeeping. I'm in the office at 6:30 before everyone, and anyone that comes after that will know that I was there earlier than them. So culture is not spoken, it is lived. So that's how we actually pull technical, IT technical compliance, and also non-technocrats in the space to actually become part of that. It's like sales. Sales, everyone in the organization from security must tell a person that comes here, what do we do in this building? So it must cascade from that, but it's only built through lived culture and not just speeches. So that's the last speech I'm going to make.
Thank you. The boss that is there at 6:30. Okay.
Yeah, I've learned something myself, so tomorrow, 6 o'clock, I'm in the office, yeah. All right, maybe first to answer Sisi's question over there, how do you let even non-technical? I will say that it is all around training, and then awareness. It must be an organizational-wide drive, not only for the people dealing with data. So, and what we've done at ENPF, I think somebody mentioned it also, is ensuring that the awarenesses that you drive are posted on your phone in the WhatsApp group, are also part of the desktop screen lock. So that's how we drive it. And then maybe as to answer Fisiwe's question on
advocating for registration.
I did mention that we are moving towards a space where registering, being part of an organization that ensures that it complies with all the requirements will make customers trust your business. So that is how I can answer that. If they register, then trust will be built. And also, where we are going to as entities, we will require data sharing, data collaboration to do business. So all the businesses that are not registered will find themselves not able to perform better because we will not be sharing the data if needed.
Thank you very much. I think from my perspective, it would just be to just sort of touch on my own understanding of the confidentiality framework then that we're really trying to build. But I wish to steal from Gogo and Silwane on this discussion because they really simplified it, that sometimes we confuse it and make it so technical and huge that people just don't get it. And when you just simplify it to it's a view one, so don't take a picture, suddenly people relate with it at the level at which they are at. So even as you look at your team, some can be technical and some non-technical. I think for me, the lesson that I've picked in local government, because you serve different persons from different backgrounds, simplify it to their level. Don't complicate it too much. I think when you start throwing around the terminologies, you tend to lose a lot of people. So simplify it. If I'm a customer-facing staff, you just want to say to me, if I'm sitting at the rates hall and someone comes and they're irate and they're talking about their property, you turn it around and say, how would you feel if you were sitting on the other side and you had to shout your issues? I haven't paid my rate. So it's like asking for a condom at a kiosk at the reception or at the front of a shop. You don't want to shout. So the same thing is true. The things that you don't want to shout, no one wants to shout. The things that you don't want seen are the same that I don't want seen. So just as we are ratepayers within the municipality, when it comes to a question of, do I want people to know that I was not able to pay my rates for this year because I had a cash flow problem? The answer is no. So what is the most humane way to handle it? So I think for me, interpreting it to the most finest way, like Gogo and Silwane were doing, is always the best thing, because at entity level, then the big words come in. You are a DPO. It's a very simple one. It's basically just katsanawele data, you know. And I think for us, the confidentiality framework, it's also a journey, of course, because Futi has mentioned training, but also starting to hold people accountable and having oaths of secrecy signed with customer-facing team and people that handle sensitive data. I've since found that what you sign for, you tend to sit forward about, because if I stand there and say to my customer-facing people in the finance department, you know, keep this information quiet, it's da-da-da, don't talk about it, it's how, well, now rates, you know. And you go to community meetings and the loudest rate payer is the one that doesn't pay. You don't say that, you don't frown, you know, you respond. But the minute you reduce it and you say, let's now commit, you know, let's sign oaths of secrecy, let's read it together. So that even though I'm the most accountable person in the organization, let's share that responsibility. So when I come back to you, it's fresh in your mind that she did talk about this. Issues of process, and I think someone mentioned it earlier that, you know, in terms of data, you can be tempted to ask for anything. So our DPO is here. One of the, so there's a booklet in the local authority where you have a meeting. It is a standard book where you sign that there was this meeting. So one of them has a column, and we've had to now start and buy a new book. It says M or F. So that I've come to a meeting, but you're asking me, am I male or female? And I'm wondering, does that change where I sit in the boardroom? What does that mean? But the question of take enough information as you need, not what you don't need, because then it becomes a problem. It's one of the discussions we're now having at local authority level. How much information do I need? Because if you take more than you need, then the problem also starts there, because you don't know what to do with the one you're not using, and before you know it, it's in the wrong hands. And then finally, issues of technology, and I think in local government and in government generally, we are catching up to the whole discussion of using technology as an enabler. So when you talk about encrypting, you talk about audits, you talk about, and you say to your team, whatever you do on the system has a footprint, I can follow. Then people sit back and think you can. So suddenly we are now in local authorities and government starting to appreciate the benefits of digital technology and how we can use it to really assist us in this journey. But truly, we can constantly ask that you engage with your local authorities. It really builds a better trust relationship, because we then know how to deal with you best, and we then know how not to and what not to do as it relates to data privacy and the individual citizens that we deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Less jargon, more simpler language. I think that's what I got from there.
I think on the 95-page issue, we also have other legislations that protect consumers from that. So we as banks, for instance, are under the Consumer Protection Act required to explain our contracts to customers at the time they come to sign, and also to opt in or opt out of marketing information that we may want to use or take from a customer. So it's not just about putting it in a very long contract, but it's explaining it in simple terms to the customer at the time you contract with them. So we're required by law to do that. In terms of the advocacy piece, we generally are required, we set up a legal framework where you cannot do business with us if you're a non-compliant service provider. And this is in our contracts. So if you're going to contract with Standard Bank, you're going to find that one of the requirements to do business with us is that you are a registered data entity, or you are registered with the data office nationally to ensure that those minimum requirements are met before we can even open the door for you to do business with us. I think it's a legal thing. It's not just doing it for the sake of. So I think it has to be enforced, and I think that's the right way to do it. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. 100% confidentiality. Without repeating what colleagues have said, I think be honest. Also inform the customers or client that there are certain exemptions, even in terms of the law, that allow us to release your information under certain conditions. Use encryption, use privileged access, use firewalls, and then hold people accountable. What would I say to somebody who hasn't registered? Listen, as a lawyer, this is a legal requirement. Again, it's a constitutional requirement. You breach the Bill of Rights protects, the right to privacy. You breach that, you have a lot. And importantly, as executive, there is a value proposition to this thing. No bank will give you money if they find that you are not registered, yet you are, processing information. So no customer will want to do business with you if you are not seen to be complying. I'll see legally a binding citizen. So definitely, I'm convinced, Masinyane. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like for you to clap hands for my panelists, my esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for your contributions. I believe that from whatever that they've shared with us, we actually now understand how other organizations are actually implementing the Data Protection Act within their structures. I also feel that it was inspiration for those that are still considering or thinking about it. And we have also learned in terms of how to deal with some of the unique, I would say, circumstances that are in our organizations, because we may not all face the same challenges. However, I believe we go home with notes on how to convince our leadership, on how to get more empowered and more budgets as DPOs as well. So thank you so much. Thank you very much.
The technology. Thank you very much. As they receive their token from the Chief Executive, we are just about done with the program of the day. KPI ukuthi ngapha 12 nibe nidla. Otherwise bengiphinde ngithole le tender. So ngiyabonga ukuthi ningibambise. Thank you very much for you've been a great audience. There is just one video that the EDPA would like us to view. We just about done. Let's just follow the video.
Every day, your personal information is shared with businesses and organizations. But do you know who is trusted to protect it? No organization can legally process personal data without registering with the EDPA. Here's how you can verify compliance. Step 1. Visit our official website at www.edpa.org.sc. Step 2. Click on Search Access Personal Data without registering with the EDPA. Here's how you can verify compliance. Step 1. Visit our official website at www.edpa.org.sc. Step 2. Click on Search Registered Entities. Enter the organization's name and hit search. You'll see a list of registered entities along with their compliance status and data protection officer details. Step 3. At the organization's premises, look for the EDPA compliance certificate. Scan the QR code to instantly verify compliance status and access details about the data protection officer. Protect your data. Verify compliance today. Visit www.edpa.org.sc.
Being here, I hope someone has been converted. Kube sasonweni njengangidawuvula sithuba ukuthi umfundisi chicks esitowuthandaza. Because it's converted, and we hope that you're going to be advocates for us, and you realize that this is just not our job, but it's everyone's job. You've been a good audience. Nami ningangishayela tani hawo. Yini bejelas. Umphathi la unalenyo nasinye simemetelo. So basa distributor ema coupons ethu ekudla. So long bambelo 12:30. Phela ngifuna lenye ithenda la kunemali la. There are coupons where lunch is served up ngale restaurant, and before we go bengisakhuluma ngendaba collaboration. Ngicela nkosi uphindze ubuye eceleni kwami Dlamini abakashuthi labafana bemakamera. We want to also recognize lama partners Dlamini that have helped us this far. I think labanye babo emabhena abakhona la ngikhathi lamanye la ngaphandle. Lamanye amabhenabo are digital, and we would like you Ngosi to come and give them their tokens. Utasisita lindo kibela lindo bendo kubamba tazuwe. Utasisita lindo so that we can have them come up and then receive their tokens. Eugene lungisa live lokuvala baba ngimthandazo. Nasiqedza la ngicela ngabani. Snat na bukhona lo melele snat sicela vele atothola i-token lo landzelako ngicela water services shona khona lapho usaba kushutha hayi khona ikhweshelani le Nkosi bathanda ushutha kalo uyabaleka vele ngiyamati buya lutho water services siyabonga kakhulu singabashayela tandla IDM FNP Eswatini FNP Eswatini, ESRIC, ESRIC, singabashayela tandla, nani stanishayela next year. ESRIC, that is FNP, bese lo landzelako ngu-FinCorp, do we have FinCorp? FinCorp, Eswatini Bank, Bangalesive keleli. El Bangalesive keleli lasibambisa. Bathi development bank ungaya lapha mama. Eswatini Bank, Nedbank Eswatini, Nedbank Eswatini. Eswatini Bank. Nedbank Eswatini. Nathi thina balimi contribute to le Namport. Computronics. Computronics, Netcom. Thank you very much. Netcom. Thank you very much. We have had I hope everyone has got a coupon and a drink. We will meet each other at the dining hall. But today, Eugene Ageko, so say I have at liberty now to choose. Buya mmelwa. Dawuthanda zummeli kenyana.
May God bless the food that we're about to partake in. Bless the hands that have prepared. All in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.